All right, so I'm getting my act together. Sorry about that. I was just saying that as I put on some chapstick, or actually it's Burt's Bees, which I like better, it's time for me to do my Saturday podcast editing. And I'm doing it live because why not? I'm one of those people who learned how to do podcasting the hard way, literally figuring it out for myself, but with the help of some really great people like Pat Flynn. If you don't know Pat Flynn of the Smart Passive Income podcast, you should check him out because he's a really great guy and very, very sharing when it comes to information. And one of the great things he did was put up a YouTube video about how to podcast with GarageBand. Literally, that is the foundation for everything I've ever done when it comes to editing my podcast. Now, there are certain tips and tricks and hints that he doesn't go into in depth because his is more of a grand overview of how to do it. But the whole point is you should check it out because it really makes the case for doing your own podcast and the beauty of doing it for free using Apple GarageBand, which of course is free for anybody who has an Apple Macintosh or Mac OS computer. It's a fantastic tool. I do 95% of the work I do to create my podcast directly in GarageBand, and I really like its user interface. It's got enough power, but not too much power. And what I mean by that is in the past, I've tried to use, I think it's Adobe Audition or something like that, which is a truly pro quality audio tool. And that's part of the problem. There's so much going on there that for someone like me, who's not an audio engineer, it's a little bit too much. There are too many tools in that toolbox, which means that I'm not going to do it. It's just too impressive, too oppressive. Instead, GarageBand gives you, I would say, about 75% of what pro level audio package does, like Adobe Audition, but it does so in a way that's much more friendly for street level people like me. So those are my caveats, which are I'm not an audio engineer. In fact, I'm going to take these off for a second. I'm not a professional audio engineer. I've worked with a lot of professional audio engineers over my 25 plus year career in advertising and marketing and all that stuff. And I've learned a lot osmotically by working with them. But I also never learned the exact right way to do it. Instead, I have the DP way of doing it, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So, without any further ado, let's get into editing this next podcast, which we're on episode 73. Holy moly. Yeah, that's episode 73 of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which I put out every Monday. And that means if I had my act together, I'd have these all queued up for the next month or something. Well, I don't have my act together. Instead, I edit Monday's podcast on the previous Saturday, right now, the way I'm doing it right now. So first thing I'm going to do is introduce you to the folder structure that I use in creating my podcast. Now, I have two .band files here. .band file is the file format that GarageBand uses for its projects. So one is for the full podcast, and the other one's for a, let's call it a 15-second to 30-second clip that I will use in an audiogram that I make with Headliner. That's a whole other show, by the way, to promote the podcast. But for now, I'm just going right here with episode 073 with Kate Toon. She's a fantastic guest from Sydney, Australia. And we have a great time when we do a podcast together, and I think it makes for a really good episode as well. So what I'm going to do is fix my windows a little bit because they're a little overlapping and stuff like that. There you can see the 072 episode and the 073 episode that is yet to be cut. Now here you can see this is just how many darn edits I will do for any given podcast. And, Kate Toon is a really great talker, and she doesn't say a lot, and she doesn't pop her P's or things like that. She has a really good audio system because she does podcasts herself, so she knows the audio. And even though we record this over Zoom, and she's in Sydney, Australia, and I'm in Madison, Wisconsin area, in the U.S., it doesn't matter because the sound sounds really good, and Zoom does a great job. And because my Zoom level of membership is the free level, I'm just thankful that I can get a quality record with someone I'm talking to on the other side of the world and get it done for free. So, again, Zoom doesn't pay me, but I want to pay them back for this tremendous service by saying, if you need to do interviews with anybody around the world, don't waste time with Skype. The audio, in my experience, is better on Zoom. The only time I'll use Skype is when I'm using what I'm broadcasting with right now, Ecamm Live. They will allow you to broadcast the Skype stream complete with video. So if I'm doing a live with someone from somewhere around the world, I'll probably do it via Skype because I want video and audio. But if it's audio only, I will use Zoom as I am doing now. So these tracks right here were recorded during a 1-hour conversation with Kate. And the way I do my podcast, we talk. I keep my eyes on the clock, and right around 25, 30 minutes, I do a show wrap up. We pause for a second, and then we continue right on with the next one. So this is my way of saying I've already copied the 02 episode or the 072 episode elsewhere. I know it's safe, so I can safely do this. Highlight both those things and say, bye-bye. They're gone. They're now not part of this podcast. Instead, I'm going to move these bad boys in sync. I'm going to keep them together in sync toward the front of the podcast. I'm going to get rid of smart controls so I can show you exactly what I'm doing. So I've got a little intro music here. And it goes bo-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So I typically like it to go bo-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So here we start talking about the podcast. So I know that typically is right about there once I have these guys. And again, keep your sync between these two tracks by always highlighting both of them. And I'm just getting it closer to the first words out of my mouth because I'm on the first track, Kate's on the second. So here, let's see what this sounds like. All right, so that's a little friendly banter interplay between me and Kate as we're taking screenshots of each other to use for marketing purposes. You know, it's something to post on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. So that's kind of fun. I like to preserve that character of two people who like each other talking to each other. So I am going to get rid of some of this. Okay, so I'm going to start with, sorry, I just want to do something. And again, so it goes bo-do-do-do-do-do-do. So I'm going to say right about there is the right place for the voices to come in. Let's listen. A little bit earlier. And again, I'm doing this musically, not visually. I'm listening. Okay, just a little bit earlier. All right. So there's some goofy stuff in there, but I want to keep it moving. Hold on. Whoa. Give me a break. Oh, that's because the loop button got hit inadvertently. This other button here, catch playhead, really important. Otherwise, this playhead marker will just scroll straight off the screen. Instead, this scrolls everything under the playhead, and you'll see what I mean right now. Okay, so I'm going to go screenshots look attractive. Screenshots. Or wait a minute, I say screenshots look at... Okay, so screenshots look at... And she says look attractive. I think that'll be fine. All right, so look attractive, and then I go, oh, it's because I'm doing kind of a model duck face or something like that. She laughs at it. All right, so how am I going to work that? All right, so I'm going to cut there and trim out all that garbage and just tighten this up and listen. All right, good. So anybody listen? Let's see. Okay, if you're doing live streams and you say people aren't going to have a problem with it. But if you are doing a podcast and there are too many ums or big breaths or things like that, it just gets really tedious. So I cut them out. Okay, so my hopefully did not make any sense whatsoever. So I'm going to duck it out. And what I mean by ducking is I'm going to literally take all the volume out. So here. All right. So, okay, this is showing the track automation, which is just a way of bringing the faders up or down on your volume. So I'm quiet. I want it louder. I raise it up. I want to duck it all the way out. I get rid of all the volume. It's literally volume up, volume down, volume back up. And you'll notice these little dots. That's how you do that. You set it up, and I call it a duck box or a duck blind, where you put like dot, 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 and then pull it down. And that's something, keep watching, and you'll see me do this a lot during this podcast. So, all right, hold on as I get rid of this and I listen back. Okay, good. So obviously I don't need that. So I go, okay, good. And then obviously anyone who listens live. All right, so this is me giving a boost box. If this is a duck box, this is a boost box. And I'm just giving, see how it's louder here and then really quiet here? Well, part of that is me just being very quiet on the mic, but I need to boost it a little bit. Ooh, the music cut out suddenly there. Let's look at, ooh, see? It started fading before it was actually out. All right, that should be fine. All right, so teasing out in the marketplace a little. I'm kind of the tempo of what I'm saying or the rhythm of it is bugging me, so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Okay, see that playhead? That playhead marker? Watch what happens. It goes off screen. Damn you, playhead. I keep it in screen by doing this. Hit catch playhead and see what happens. All right, so this is... All right, so I have a loud breath here. I cut at the end of the previous word. This intervening stuff where we talk over each other aren't necessary. So let's listen. Okay, that's a little tight. I need a little bit more time. I can get that much more time there, and that'll probably be enough. There's a little bit of a was that? All right, so it was just a little bit of a tick from this clip. Let's see. I think I cut off some of the shark. Be more shark. Yeah, I did cut off a little bit. And I can get a little bit more. See how I'm being very careful to always do both tracks? All right. All right, hold on a second. I want to check to make sure my compressors are on for both tracks. Her track, it's on. You can see the amount of compression. I am maxing out that compression. And there's a reason for that. And I also want to check my EQ to make sure it's vintage vocal. It is. And her EQ setting is male vocal refresh, which is interesting. You can see up here, it highlights a lot of the female vocal range. So they call it male vocal refresh, but I think it's what they mean by that is that when male singers sing in a higher register, they're actually up here. But this works really, really well for female voiceover interviews. So I'm giving her that EQ, whereas my track's EQ is called vintage vocal, which gives some real low-end boost and a little bit of mid-range boost because that's where my voice sits. I want it to have a kind of lower-end richness. Like here, let's see if you can tell a difference. Let's see if I can tell a difference. Okay, this is without. Let's try it now with it on. Okay, it's very subtle. Anyway, let's keep editing. Okay. I like what she's saying, but this gap is a little long. And again, I'm thinking not from what she's saying or how she sounds so much as what the listening audience needs to stay engaged. And sometimes that is just shortening up some of those gaps a little bit. So she's got an in here, and you can see it right there. I have a saying in podcast editing, if it is discrete, you can delete. And by discrete, it means there's a gap before and a gap after. It's like an island. It is so easy, Command T for trim, to get rid of that altogether. Close it up, not the full gap, but some of it. Did you miss the Of course not. How you deal with the imposter syndrome, I can tighten that up just a tad too. All right, so here we go. I can cut out a pretty big chunk of that. She had an in there. Again, that doesn't help with audience comprehension, so get rid of it. And by the way, if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube Live, and I think this might be going to Facebook as well. I have to check my restream settings. You can ask questions by commenting, and those questions should, fingers crossed, show up on my restream chat bot or on my Ecamm Live comments and reactions window, and I'll be able to answer those questions in real time. And I invite those questions. So if you're watching, go ahead and interrupt me with any questions about the equipment I use, why I do this and that, how, if you have better ideas on how to do something, I'm up to listening to it. Just don't berate me for doing something that you're not doing. This is my 73rd episode. How many have you done? If you've done 5,000 and can teach me some stuff, I'm listening. But if you've never done a podcast, kick out some episodes, do this for a while, and then let's talk. But if you're a total beginner or someone who's just interested in maybe learning how to podcast, this whole thing is for you. So if you're like, hey, DP, what microphone is this? I'll tell you. Hey, DP, why do you have a pop filter here and a pop filter here when there's a built-in pop filter on the microphone? I'll tell you that too. And I can tell you anything about the system I'm using to actually do this live stream as well. So go ahead and ask questions. Cool? Let's get back to the show. All right. Yes, I'm going to use Ecamm Live. Thank you very much.
So that's why Be More Shark came about. It's going to be a book. It's the next series of my podcast. And as I said, I will have T-shirts and shields available for purchase.
Your sigil is a shark, a tiger shark, or a great no. You're from Australia, so it's got to be a great shark, a tiger shark, or a great no. Okay, so she has some blah, blah, blah here that doesn't make any sense. I am going to cut it or duck it out. Now, some people I know or have seen will take any time I talk, cut out what her thing altogether. That's not, to me, that's very synthetic because a conversation happens between each other. So if I just cut out all of me while she's talking and then have cut out all of her while I'm talking, I think that's very synthetic. And that's why I don't do it. Your sigil is a shark, a tiger shark, or a great no. You're from Australia, so it's got to be a great white. Absolutely. The queen of the seas. Well, that's very cool. All right, so I say
The
well.
queen of the seas. Well,
Well is one of my placeholder words, which annoy the crap out of me. So sometimes I have to leave it in, but if I can take it out, I'm getting rid of it. Well, so now these are my kind of transition filler words.
the queen of the sea. That is so that's very cool. Is
All right, that is so that is very cool. I think this Queen of the Seas. Yeah. See that little period at the end of that Queen of the Seas part? That's like the end of the S where you just kind of give it a period.
absolutely the queen of the seas. So that's very cool. Is when you say
So that's very cool.
very cool is when you
See that big It's discrete. So what can I do? I can delete. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to close it up. Yes, I do this by hand. There are automatic ways to do this that are very robotic. I think this is very human and musical, and I am a musical human, so I'm doing it this way.
the queen of the seas. So that's very cool. Is when you say a book, when are you expecting to get the book out?
I'm hoping.
So that's very cool. Is when you say a book.
Okay. Beep, bleh, beep, bleh. So that's very cool.
So that's very cool. Is when you
Okay. So get rid of that. Tuck it together.
So that's very cool. When you say a book, when are you expecting to get the book out?
Okay, that was kind of tortured. Wait, beep, beep up. So I can change the tempo and rhythm of my response by getting rid of some of this extraneous gappage. You don't want to do this all the time. You want to listen and you want to think like a musician, which is sometimes you'll play on the beat, sometimes you'll purposely play off the beat. Sometimes it'll have a triplet pattern of da-da-da, which is 3 beats within 2 beats or 3 notes within 2 beats.
Cool. When you say a book, when are you expecting to get the book out?
I'm hoping to have that out by May. I'm hoping to have that out.
Are you expecting to get the book out?
I'm hoping to have that out by May. So actually what I'm doing with my podcast is, again, to try and get a book written is incredibly difficult. We know this. Producing content for social media is hard. Producing podcasts is hugely hard. So for social media is hard. Producing podcasts is hugely hard. So I thought I would cheat. And I'm using the podcast as kind of the fact-finding mission for the book. So I'm interviewing 12 different psychologists on different types of fear.
Smart.
Psychologists on different types of fear.
Smart.
And then I'm going to introduce business people, and one of them is going to be DP Knudten. He doesn't know it yet because I haven't asked him.
Well, you have now, and I'm saying, yeah, baby.
Yeah. So, we're going to be talking about fears that people have faced and how they've overcome them to try and put together basically what I want to do is put together a plan of how to overcome fear. Like, what can you do? What practical steps can you take? And that will... fear, like what can you do? What practical steps can you take? And that will then, I will cogitate all of that, mix it around in a pot, and then spit it out as a book. So, the series. So,
all right, so you can tell.
So, the series will...
I'm letting her style come out, but I'm getting rid of the ums. Anything that'll make her look stupid or make her sound not perfect, that's going away.
Series will be a precursor to the book. Obviously, it will also help get people excited about them.
Help get people excited. See, I want to keep her rhythm, her kind of
precursor to the book. Obviously, it will also help get people excited about the book, but it's my fact-finding mission because I kind of know what I want to say, but I'm a big believer in asking cleverer people than me what they think, and I want to incorporate other people's stories as well because I love reading stories of triumph, stories of we all love the hero's journey. We all love the hero's journey. We all love.
So stories of.
We all love the hero's.
I wonder, we all love the hero's journey. Stories, she was going to say stories of overcoming. I think this is we all love the.
Yeah,
that.
Yeah. I love reading stories of triumph. We all love the hero's journey. We all love, I was here, this happened, this was bad, and then now I'm here. And I think the big important thing with fear is it's not something you ever overcome. Like you never stop being scared, but you learn how to manage that fear and channel it and use it to drive you to do more things. So
I'm going to write this down because I need to listen for a pull quote for marketing purposes. And I kind of like what she's saying right here.
Like you never stop being
afraid. 3, 4, 9 and change. I'm going to put a trim there just as a start.
Like you never stop being scared, but you learn how to manage that fear and channel it and use it to drive you to do more things. So that's kind of the basic message of be more sharp.
Well, that is so.
All right. So how long is that? That's not terribly long. Maybe I can.
Now I'm here. And I think the big important thing with fear is it.
Okay, that's where I can start it. I think so. Let's do this. Let's put our trim there.
And I think the big important thing with fear.
So that's, and I think that's at 344 and change.
And I think the big important thing with fear is it's not something you ever overcome. Like you never stop being scared, but you learn how to manage that fear and channel it and use it to drive you to do more things. So that's kind of the basic message of be more sharp.
Well, that is so smart. And, it's always been a content creation killer ninja tip to say the best thing you can do is get other people to write your stuff or to give you their thing. So I'm imagining, correct me if I'm wrong, that as you do this podcast, you're going to get transcriptions of those podcasts, do a little bit of editorial cleanup, and then a lot of those sections are going to find their way into your book as meaty sections from meaningful people that can provide a whole lot of credibility building for you amongst their networks. Because here's the thing. If you talk to person A who's flying at 50,000.
If you talk to person A, if you talk to person A, if you talk to person A who's flying at 50,000 feet and you're flying at 25,000 feet, guess what? You are flying at 50,000 feet because you're talking to them. And then all the people who are hanging out with them at 50,000 feet see you as a new member of that flock, and they accept you because, well, if you're good enough for a person who's flying at 50,000 feet A, you're good enough for me. So it's very much people hang out with people they're impressed. I'm kind of hemming and hawing my way around a point. So I'm taking out some of the hemming and some of the hawing. You're good enough for me. So it's very much people hang out with people they're impressed with, that they enjoy, that they respect, that they find valuable. And then I'm looking right next to that they find valuable. And then I'm looking right next to them to find out who they're hanging out with. Because if they pass muster with you, I want to get to know them. And, it in the worst case, it's a In the worst case,
know that. And, it in the worst case,
so let's see.
Pass muster with you, I want to get to know them. And, it in the worst case, it's a Machiavelli.
And, in the worst case, so get rid of that it.
And, in the worst case, it's a Machiavellian mercenary technique that is poorly done by 1,000 different people on LinkedIn every single day. In the best case, it's a fantastic killer trick and tip and hack and shortcut to get you to meet the right people and bring them into your network.
Right people and bring them into your network. And bring them into your network.
To meet the right people and bring them into your network. And from what you're saying,
right, I'm hearing a little I'm thinking my noise gate is a little too sensitive right now. And what's a noise gate? We shall see. But first, I'm going to create a loop because I'm hearing this kind of eep-op orc
shortcut to get you to meet the right people. Shortcut.
So it's really meet the right people.
To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people.
People.
To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people.
Do you hear the
to
P
meet
come in?
the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To meet the right people. To
so
meet
I lose
the right
P when
people.
I'm
to
at minus,
meet the right
so
people.
Minus
to meet the right people. 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 To meet the right.
Yeah, there you go. Setting up a noise gate is always a slightly difficult thing because you're fighting the need to get rid of the breath without losing the articulators when people talk. So things like people.
And shortcut to get you to meet the right people and bring them into your network. And from what you're saying, give you meaningful content for your book. Now, I know you enough to know you aren't just going to pull quotes and not add to it. You're going to riff off what they're talking about.
You're going to riff off what they're talking about.
To it. You're going to riff off what they're talking about in a huge way, adding a lot of your Kate Toon value to whatever they have to say.
All right. I want to get a big picture on this track before I go any further.
Adding a lot of your Kate Toon value to whatever they have to say and share.
All right, so I want to pull back just to see how much. All right, so we're between 25 and 30, so 27 minutes. Great. So I can continue to cut stuff out without fearing of having too short an episode. That's my goal is always to have episodes of about 25 minutes to 30 minutes in length. Anything below that, and I'm feeling like make it a little longer. So what this means is that I've got 27 minutes to play with. I could lose 2 full minutes of uhs and timing, and without really affecting the length of the podcast episode. So I'm going to keep cutting away. All right, here we go. Checking audio. Yep. Check audio. Yep, we're fine.
off what they're talking about in a huge way, adding a lot of your Kate Toon value to whatever they have to say and share.
Yeah, exactly. And a real important point that I'd like to make, though, there is that I am never somebody that reaches up to people who I think are at 50,000 feet. I know that sounds weird. I want to be around people who are at the 20,000, 25,000 feet. So I am not going to be knocking on Amy Porterfield's door and asking if she'll be interviewed for this podcast, because I don't know Amy Porterfield. She's amazing. She's great. But that would be, for me, insincere. Like, I could go out there and I could say, hey, look, I'm going to get Richard Branson and, Mark Burris in Australia, and all these big names to try and elevate my name.
She had a big breath there. Let's just take a look at that.
In Australia, and all these big names.
All right, so that's a big breath. That is very prominent. So I'm going to build a duck blind or a duck box, and I'm going to duck it. I'm going to increase the size just to make sure I'm not cutting off this word. It looks clear.
Australia, and all these big names to try and elevate.
I'm going to leave a little bit of the breath in because it does sound a little weird without it. Come on. Let me up. I can do it this way. Grab the dot. And grab that dot. Whoop. Not that part of that dot. I was grabbing the segment. Yeah, it gets a little fiddly trying to grab the dots. Let's see.
And all these big names to try and elevate.
All right. So here. Get rid of that.
And all these big names to try and elevate my name. That's just very unauthentic Kate Toon. So what I'm going to do is interview people who are, I think, kind of at my level, that are awesome and that maybe Australian audiences don't know about. Because I think for me, especially with a book like this, is teaching you about fear. I don't relate to Richard Branson. You know, he's a gazillion billionaire. His whole life story is different. But if I see another, 40-year-old woman who's...
Okay, there's another big breath right there. And I just lost it. Where the heck was it?
His whole life story is different. But if I see another,
So right there. I could check her noise gate. What's it set at? 38. Yeah, I gotta duck this. Again, I wish the noise gate thing in GarageBand was a little better, a little less slam the door, and a little more subtle, but it's not.
Another, 40-year-old woman who's got a couple of kids, who's managed to, maybe not create a giant empire, but she's done really, really well. She's like 2 steps away from me, rather than like Beyonce is 20 steps away from me.
Right.
It just seems too aspirational. I keep it a little bit low. Let's say 30,000 feet. I'm a 30,000 feeter. And also, I want to bring people up too. So the psychologists I'm interviewing, they're not famous psychologists. They're working psychologists whose opinion is just as valid. And for me, that creates more of a village effect. It takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to grow a business. And all of us have as much to get out of the project as each other. Whereas if I get Amy Porterfield on, maybe I'm trying to limp it on her fame, but she's not going to share my book because she's interviewed all the time. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm picking on poor Amy Porterfield. She's marvelous, but do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the fact that you're kind of taking the technique I was talking about and brand aligning it with who you.
Brand aligning it.
I was talking about, and brand aligning it with who you actually.
So there's a weird hum. That she says right here. What am I going to do? Say goodbye to it.
The technique I was talking about, and brand aligning it with who you actually are. Because here's the thing, you write a book and you. Because here's the thing, like, yeah, you write a book and you're talking to Mark Zuckerberg and Beyonce and Richard Branson and, Jane Fonda and Kylie Minogue and you name it. And you're like, number one, yeah, Kate, I know you don't hang out. And Kylie Minogue and you name it. And you're like, number one,
I need to duck that.
And Kylie Minogue and you name it. And you're like, number one, yeah, Kate, I know you don't hang out with those people. Maybe they.
All right, so there's an example of where I got too low. So I'm going to boost it. It's not just about cutting it out. It's also about boosting things that need it.
Yeah, Kate, I know you don't hang out with those people. Maybe they did it for you, but I love the fact that you're curating people who have tremendous value, perhaps are a little bit underknown, because here's the thing that benefits you if you help them achieve greater notoriety, better awareness or whatever, they now appreciate you to death. And it's attainable. It's like attainable greatness, not unobtainable greatness.
You just described it so much better than me. Attainable greatness, not unobtainable. And also flip it. For example, when I
So let's see.
Not unobtainable greatness.
You just described it so much better than me. Attainable greatness, not unobtainable. And also flip it. For example, when I introduced you to my clever copywriting community, like the joy that they got out of discovering you, and most of them then went on to follow you on LinkedIn and blah, blah, blah. It was a gift to them. Yes, it was a gift to you, but it was a really gift to them. And I think that's important to me as well. That I'm not writing this book to pop it on Amazon for free to get one Amazon bestseller spot for half an hour. I'm writing this book because I genuinely want to write a good book and I want it to be useful and I want it to be helpful. So it's not an ego bait thing. Yes, it's a branding exercise. Yes, it gives me new things to talk about at events and on podcasts. I need that. I'm a bit over talking about SEO and copywriting. I want a new story to tell. The example I always use, I've got two more important things to say. Imagine being Britney Spears, and every time you go to a concert, everyone says, "Can you please sing Toxic?" And she's like, "I wrote that song 20 years ago. Do I have to keep singing it?" Well, that's a little bit how I feel about SEO, and I shouldn't bite the hand that feeds me because it's huge for me, as you saw from the pie chart. And the other thing I wanted to say, which was super important, is I do hang out with Kylie Minogue. There's a guy called Graham Norton. I don't know if you've ever seen him.
Yeah. I love Graham Norton.
And he has this thing called the red chair where he puts people in and they fall backwards.
Right.
I was the original red chair.
Right.
I was the original red chair.
Are you kidding?
And it's on YouTube, DP, so I'll have to send it to you.
Oh my God. Because okay, so Graham Norton is a UK talk show host, and the talk show host, and the kind of on talk show host, and the kind of ongoing bit the kind of ongoing and the kind of ongoing bit they do is they have someone in a room
from the audience.
Right,
Yeah.
from the audience. They put them in a red chair and they'll ask a question, or half the time they don't get to ask the question before they're ejected from the chair backwards, I think. And no, Graham Norton's in my Facebook clip feed all the time.
Me too. I'll send you the clip. I was on
You buried the lead right there. You were the original red chair on Graham Norton.
And you know what he called me, DP? He called me Chat Show Gold.
Oh my.
Chat Show Gold.
DP? He called me Chat Show Gold.
Oh my gosh. Why is that not on your website?
You know what? I'm going to take a note, DP. By the end of today, that's going to be on my website. So
it should be, because it encapsulates.
All right, we crosstalk here. It doesn't make much sense, so go ahead, cut it out. All right, I need to start listening for where I can put a promo in.
That's going to be on my website.
It should be, because it encapsulates, it captures perfectly exactly who you are, which is kind of zany. You are, which is kind of zany, British with zany, British. Kind of zany, British with kind of just all the admixture that.
I'm trying to make more sense of this.
Kind of zany, British with kind of just all the admixture that is.
All right, the admixture that is. Kind of zany.
Which is kind of zany, British with the admixture that is. British with the admixture that is. Kate Toon of Sydney, Australia. Is Kate Toon of Sydney, Australia. It's all summed up in a clip that I cannot wait to see. Well, I want to go back to be more.
Right, so that's great. A great place for a promo. This episode of the Nonfiction Brand Podcast is brought to you by. All right, so we can plug in this one right in that gap. And then pull this back.
Australia. It's all summed up in a clip that I cannot wait to see.
This episode of the Nonfiction Brand Podcast is brought to you by Nonfiction Brandversity. It's a free Facebook group. Oh, why'd you do that? Dying. And craft of personal branding. And we'd like to invite you. Just search Nonfiction Brandversity on Facebook and ask to join. You're in, guaranteed. I can't wait to see you on campus.
I want to go back to be more shark, because I'm really excited about it, because I'll be honest with you. I was just at something today here in Madison, Wisconsin, where I live. And it was a really great event, majority female. At the end of it, when it came to Q&A time, of all the questions asked, At the end of it, when it came to Q&A time, of all the questions asked, the majority were from older white men. And believe me, I'm sitting there and I have things.
I'm listening to this and going, is this going to piss people off?
White men. And believe me, I'm sitting there and I have things I want to say, and I'm not saying them because I'm like, I have a house full of women here, so I'm very aware of the fact that, no, you've got to let other people talk. So I'm literally going, don't say anything. Don't. Here, so I'm very aware of the fact that, no, you've got to let other people talk. So I'm literally going, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't ask the question. Don't ask the question. Somebody. So I'm very aware of the fact that, no, you've got to let other people talk. So I'm literally going, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't ask the question. Don't ask the question. Somebody asked, come on, there's dead air here. You know, and one of the things I hate is dead air. But there was a room full of people.
So I can have an and or a but we can't have an and a but. So I'm going to get rid but. I'm going to get rid of the but and make an and is positive. A but is potentially negative.
It's dead air. And there was a room full of people.
Oop, that didn't sound right. So I'm going with the but.
Dead air here, you know, and one of the things I hate is dead air. But there was a room full of people who were not shark. They were, for whatever reason, they were sitting on their hands. They weren't getting out there. Is part. Whatever reason, they were sitting on their hands. They weren't getting out there. Is part of your goal getting out there? Is part of your.
Okay, did you hear that? I don't think that's the.
There is part.
Okay, so there. I need to cut out that little
getting out there. Is part of your goal of the book to get people.
All right, I need to retain that gap. This is a technique you got to be careful with, but you can use it to leave the gap in.
They weren't getting out there. Is part of your goal of the book. Is part of your goal of the book to get people to recognize that maybe they aren't shark, but they need to become shark?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously sharks are seen as quite vicious, horrible creatures, but they're actually not. They're lovely. So I have to explain the shark thing in the book. Yeah, it's just the biggest things that we worry about. We all want to be liked. We all want people to appreciate us. Nobody wants to look stupid. And I think we also all have this sort of.
Had an in there. See that right there? I can get rid of it.
And I think
anytime you can take an out, especially for your guests, you make them sound smarter. And guests who sound smart are going to like you and come back on your podcast. So that's a big thing, a big reason to
appreciate us. Nobody wants to look stupid. And I think we also all have this sort of scarcity model, whereas we're happy with what we've got, and we're so frightened of losing what we've got, whether that's face or, actual physical things.
There's an in there.
We've got, whether that's face or, actual physical.
This is tough. I might have to leave this in. Well, I can see the Okay, so you can see the right there. So what I can do is trim and then pull it back right to that little gap. I want to just get right at the valley, the bottom of the valley, and see how that sounds. Back it up.
whether that's face or, actual physical things, that we don't want to reach for anything else, because we end up in, and this works quite well, it's like a surfer position where you're reaching out for this thing over here and you're going to have to let go of something over there. So you could reach out to, have more of a public profile, but you have to let go of your private profile. You can reach out to be a speaker, but then what are you letting go of to be a speaker? You can reach out to launch a thing, but then you're going to have to let go of maybe having day-to-day clients. There's always an exchange. And I think, it's...
And there's another
day-to-day clients. There's always an exchange. And I think, it's a lot about mindset and being brave and not being...
And
mindset and
I don't need that second and.
A lot about mindset and, being brave and not feeling good enough, especially for women, I think, but less men too. But yeah, it's...
But yeah.
But yeah. I think, but less men too. But yeah, it's... I want people to...
But yeah, I want people to, not it's, I want people to.
But yeah, I want people to just appreciate that it is.
A little bit of a pause, but don't need all that length of pause. So why not get rid of it?
I want people to just appreciate that it is doable. These things that you see other people doing, they took steps to get there. They didn't go from here to here. Some people do. Some people are born with amazing confidence. I wasn't.
All my panels are read-only. What are you telling me, Restream? Oh, it looks like I've got to fix something in Restream. What a surprise.
Born with amazing confidence. I wasn't. And it's been a process. And I just want to... confidence. I wasn't. And it's been a process. And I just want to illustrate that process. So even if you can move one step forward, it's still... You're maybe doing a few of the things that you really want to do. And you stop holding yourself back. You stop sitting on your hands at the event. And you actually put your hand...
Stop sitting on your hands at the event.
That you stop sitting on your hand at the event and you actually put your hand up, and don't be scared if people think your question is stupid, because there are no stupid questions.
Well, here's the reality. Every event I've ever been at, and when I got over my fear of raising my hand or making a statement or asking a question, every single time making a statement or asking a question, every single time someone comes up afterwards saying, I'm glad you asked that, because I wanted to ask it, but I was fill in the blank.
But I was fill in the blank.
But I was fill in the blank. The bottom line is I wasn't.
The bottom line is one of my filler phrases too, so I got to watch that.
Fill in the blank. The bottom line is I wasn't shark enough.
Yes.
So
be more shark.
Be more shark. Well, that's so cool. So the book, you're looking to get it out in 2020, correct?
Yeah.
What time?
2020. Get her, yeah. Get rid. Okay, this is a technique you can do too. So I'm just going to grab I want to get that out of there. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to leave a gap.
To get it out in 2020.
Yeah.
What time frame?
I'm Rick.
What time frame? Get rid of the loop. Command T. Got it.
Yeah.
What time frame?
I reckon June.
What time frame?
Yeah.
What time frame?
I reckon June. So the podcast will launch in probably January. And I'm trying to do a bit of a different approach with the podcast. I want it to be more narrative, which obviously helps me write the book. So, it's not going to be straight interview. Obviously, it helps me write the book. So, it's not going to be straight interview. I want to do the interviews and then I want to slice it into a... interview. I want to do the interviews and then I want to slice it into a story. So more Reply All, This American Life with a story as the arc, and then snippets of talk in that. And then snippets of talk in that. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is going to take a lot more effort from my point of view to produce that. And because, putting together shows that you have to edit a lot, we know they take a lot of time.
Right.
But the process of crafting those episodes will get me a step closer to having a crafted chapter. So pretty much each episode of the podcast will relate to a chapter. Pretty much each episode of the podcast will relate.
Each episode of the podcast. I think that's a podcast.
So pretty much each episode of the podcast will relate to a chapter. Not exactly, because I don't basically want the podcast to be an audible version of the book.
Right.
But it will help me in that journey, because crafting a book is hard. It's not just putting the stuff in. You have to really have an arc and a story and a structure. And I really want this to be a good one,
Yeah.
Not that my first book wasn't great, but in reality, it was a... Not that my first book wasn't great, but in reality, it was a collection of blog posts glued together with an intro and an outro. And I want this to be a bit of an evolution for my own personal satisfaction, to be honest,
Well, no, it makes total sense because... Well, no,
I don't need my well. I'm going to get rid of that well. Well, no, it makes total sense.
Personal satisfaction, to be honest,
No, it makes...
Okay, there's a breath there.
Satisfaction, to be honest,
No, it makes total sense because as you continue to develop as a talent, as a writer, as a thought leader, if you want to use that term, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy.
And that's...
And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about you is that complacency is not a happy place for you. I mean, I'm sure you're as lazy as everybody is on individual days, but then there's a day where you go, you know what? I'm not happy with where I am. I want to take this to the next level.
Yeah, it's that itchy.
With where I am, I want to take this to the next level.
Yeah, it's that itchy pants feeling, but in a positive way, sand in your pants in a kind of a different way. I think it's the human condition I don't want to always be like, what next? Like I do now take more time to appreciate achievements and go, well done, you did that. Pat yourself on the back, take a breath. And I'm also much better at take a breath. And I'm also much better at making sure that the things I'm doing fit my business model, fit my goals, rather than I'm just doing.
things fit my business model.
Things I'm doing are fit my business model, fit my goals, rather than I'm just doing them as a reaction to a competitor or because my ego has taken over for the day. So I'm getting more mature. All right,
so there's a breath. I wonder if this is too short.
Has taken over for the day. So I'm getting more mature.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to pull that back.
Has taken over for the day. So I'm getting more mature, I think, DP, which is over for the day. So I'm getting more mature, I think, DP, which is a good thing. But yes, onwards and upwards. There's so many exciting things to do. I've got a million ideas. I just need the time to do them. And there is time because, I'm going to be doing this till I'm an old gray woman.
Well, all right. I have to make note of something because she is talking about her book. I'm working on a new book myself. And as she's talking, it's spurring thoughts. And I want to capture one of them because it's all about differentiation. I'm going to put a...
I'm going to be doing this till I'm an old gray woman.
Well, here's the thing. I want to go back.
Old gray woman.
Because, I'm going to be doing this till I'm an old gray woman.
Here's the thing. I want to go back to the kind of the founding. I want to go back to the foundation of the nonfiction brand. I want to go back to the kind of the
foundation.
I want to go back to the foundation of
this. Let's see if this will work. This is what I love about audio editing. You just don't know if it's going to work, and then all of a sudden you hear it and go, wow, that works perfectly.
Here's the thing. I want to go back to the foundation of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which is all about helping people and small businesses, or I will say small businesses. Guess what? You're a personal brand. If you have under 50 employees, you're still if you have under 50. Say small businesses, guess what? You're a personal brand. If you have under 50 employees, you're still a personal brand. Embrace the embrace. Or I will say small businesses, guess what? You're a personal brand. If you have under 50 employees, you're still a personal brand. Guess what? You're a personal brand. If you have under 50 employees, you're still a personal brand. Embrace the Jesus out of that. If you do that, you now have the power to do whatever is aligned with your personal brand. And personal branding is aligned with your personal brand. And personal branding, I see a lot of hucksters.
Okay, I need to put the second promo in because I'm going into a whole dissertation. I think it might be a good idea. All right, so yeah, I need to plug this in someplace around here. So where am I going to plug it in?
Old gray woman.
Here's the thing. I want to go back to the foundation of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which is all about helping people and small.
All right, so why don't we, old gray woman. Excuse me. Lordy. Hold on, I need to do something with Stream Deck. Okay, Stream Deck. Hey, DP, how are you getting these occasionally nice transitions? Well, I'm using a product, software and hardware, called Stream Deck, and I want to, click on that. Accounts, profiles, software version, sleep after 1 hour. How about that? It's actually a pad. I wonder if I can show you this. If I can pick you up and show it. By going to my Hero Cam shot, I can show you how, I'll pull it off. Stream Deck looks like this. It's just this little switcher box that allows, and what's cool is these are actually LEDs, so it'll show you what screen you're switching to, and it allows you to be a little bit more slick. Hold on. Got this plugged into a hub. It allows you to do cool stuff like this. Hey, I'm talking to you, but I want to cut away. I want to cut away to my B cam. Hi, I'm back. And so it allows you to go back and forth really, really easily, and just adds a level of professionalism to your podcast or your live stream, and makes it a little bit more fun and a little bit more cool. Oh, and by the way, I can also throw up the title screen of this live stream at any time as well. So really cool product. Again, I bought it myself. I use it myself. Elgato is the company that makes it, Elgato, and it's called a Stream Deck. Highly recommended. Very cool. And Elgato, anytime you want to send me a new upgraded one, I would love it, and I'll tout it just as vociferously in future episodes as well. But again, I bought this, and I love it. It's about just over $100 maybe. Well worth it, if you ask me. Back to the show. All right, so we were right over here. Well, what's going on? I want to get over in GarageBand. It's not. Oh, I see what's happening. Yeah, last interface not available. Fine, whatever. All right, so.
And there is time, because, I'm going to be doing this till I'm an old gray woman.
That's good. Hey, nonfiction branders, did you know I wrote a book? Well, I did, and it's called Rotoma, the ROI of social media top of mind. I wrote it with my colleague Spencer X. Smith, and it's all about Rotoma, an acronym that means Return on Top of Mind Awareness. Best-selling author and NYU Stern School of Business professor Scott Galloway called it a book that starches the fluff from social media and helps managers allocate capital and find the unicorn among unicorns, ROI. And Chief Content Officer at Marketing Props, Ann Handley, sorry. Oh, it's always bopping back and forth. That stinks. All right, so we're doing this. He said, this isn't just a practical way to think about the return on social media. It's also a spot-on, accurate way to reframe your social efforts. Check out all the 5-star reviews on Amazon by searching Rotoma, Rotoma. Pick up your copy today and start building your personal, professional, and small business brand the Rotoma way. Here's the thing. I want to go back to the... All right, so obviously I need to move this stuff back further. Okay, so I've already done some cuts here. I got to grab all of them and pull them back. Otherwise, I'm going to overwrite the ones that are behind where I cut. So, again, I just want it to do this. Here's the thing. I want to go back to the foundation of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which is all about helping people. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. I want to go back to the foundation of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which is all about helping people and small businesses, or I will say small businesses. Guess what? You're a personal brand. If you have under 50 employees, you're still a personal brand. Embrace the
bejesus out of that. If you do that, you now have the power to do whatever is aligned with your personal brand. And personal branding, I see a lot of hucksters out there that are kind of like, here's a framework, here's a fill in the blank thing, here's a blah, 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 blah. Here's a fill in the blank thing. Here's a blah, blah.
Okay, did you hear that? That breath?
Blah, 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 blah. Do what I did.
Oops. Yeah.
The blank thing. Here's a blah, 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 blah.
Oh. Yeah. Fill in the blank thing.
Here's a fill in the blank thing. Here's a blah, 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 blah. Do what I did exactly this way, and you'll be a personal brand just like I am. And I'm like, dude, it's not that difficult, and it's certainly not that programmatic. It needs to be a very focused. It needs to be a
Let's get rid of that second It needs to be
It needs to be a very focused thing as you look at who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Actually write it down on paper and do what you did with kind of your your business works thing, which and do what you did with kind of your your business works thing, which is I've always intuited,
which is there's a breath here. Just cut it out. Sometimes you can just cut it out instead of duck it out.
Works thing, which is I've always intuited this, or I know the chronology of it, but I never connected the dots. And there's a fantastic Steve Jobs connected the dots. There's a fantastic Steve Jobs. I think he did a commencement speech at Stanford. Went back when he, and I don't know what year that. I think he did a Steve Jobs.
Yeah, this is kind of hacky, so I'm going to just cut it up until it makes sense.
There's a fantastic Steve Jobs. I think he did a commencement speech at Stanford.
Stanford. Get a nice D. Again, get to the end before the next word starts. And cut that out.
Stanford went back when he
none of that's important.
I don't know what year that was, 2007 or something like that.
All that stuff is just a waste of time, so let's not waste our audience's time. Let's see how this goes.
The commencement speech at Stanford, and he talks about you can't see the dots. You can't see the dots. Talks about you can't see the dots. And he talks about you can't see the dots until you turn around and you connect them. Well, part of that, sitting down now.
Part of that, sitting down now. Part of that
Well, part of that, sitting down now and say to yourself, who am I? What and say to yourself, who am I? What do I like to do? What do people appreciate about what I do? And figure that out. I mean, because
we don't need the because let's face it.
And figure that out. Because let's face it, if someone's telling you the thing you need to do is a podcast and a video series, and you've got a face for not even radio, or you don't feel comfortable doing it, do not waste your time.
Yeah.
Don't try to copy someone else. Find your original you. But
And
to
it
do that,
changes.
yeah,
It changes
it
all
will
the time.
develop. It will
Yeah.
develop. It's not like human beings are not like it will
Yeah.
develop. Human beings are not like monarch butterflies that go from total phase changes from I was a thing that looks like a caterpillar and now I'm a butterfly. No, we don't have those types of phase changes. There is always a through line. Those types of phase changes. There is always a through line there. The question is, have you identified the through line or the primary elements of who you are, what you do, and how you do it?
What you do. Have that there's kind of
primary elements of who you are, what you do, and how.
So there was a what you do. The rhythm of that what you do is messed up, so I'm going to fix it.
You are, what you do, and how you do it. You have done that. You have talked about that a little bit with the fact that you embrace
with
you have talked about that a little bit with the fact that you embrace the strategically silly with the fact that you embrace the strategically silly side and make it a core part of your business. Everything you do is based on the written word and its products and it is based on the written word and its products. You know, you're talking about the fact that your new podcast is going to be the written word and a podcast and other things that are a new step forward. Other things that are a new step forward for you. So you're not going from Kate Toon the caterpillar to Kate Toon the butterfly. You're just continuing your evolution.
Exactly. And sometimes you need to return to the cocoon and spend a bit of time there and remember, you know, who you are and what you are, because it's very easy to get lost in this busy social media world and, you know, seeing what everyone does and lose your sense of self and lose what you care about. And I think it's really important every now and again to take a step back and go back to the cocoon and go, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't want to do that anymore. And that's okay, because I'm a personal brand and my brand is me, and whatever I want to do is okay, because I'm the only person I'm judging it against is me. And you know, my customers will either like it.
Don't need two ands. And my customers
against is me. And you know, my customers will either like it or they won't, but that's okay too. So yeah, cocoon time is good too. Be more shark and get back in your cocoon. I think that's the message.
Well, and I want to go back and ask you a thing about and I want.
I don't like my so I'm going to cut it out.
That's the message.
I want to go back and ask you a thing about I want to go back and ask you a thing about TikTok. You said you and your son are going to create a series on TikTok?
Yeah, so my son is he's 10 and he's very Yeah, so my son is he's 10 and he's very anti-social media in the way that the next generation kind of is. So he's like, whenever I want to post anything, he's like, Mom, don't put that on Instagram or Facebook. He's not remotely interested in having a Facebook account or anything like that. But TikTok is hilarious. It's really funny. And we practice all the little songs. I don't know. There's one called I Won't. Is hilarious. It's really funny. And we practice all the little songs. I don't know. There's one called I won't go into it, but I'll send it to you afterwards. I started doing the hand movements. And it's just a fun thing for us to do together. And I think, with the TikTok thing, I would at least recommend people go on and try and get their brand name because it'll be gone. And we don't know where TikTok's going. Like people, I remember people 10 years ago poo-pooing Facebook and 15 years ago poo-pooing website. Who knows? And I don't want to be a doing website. Who knows? And I don't want to be a boomer. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm not doing TikTok. It's so millennial or whatever. I want to stay in touch with pop culture and with the youth and with my son. And that, because that keeps me young. It gives me new ideas, keeps me enthusiastic, makes me creative. So I recommend you go and have a play, but just a play. It doesn't have to be an integral part of your business content marketing strategy. It's just go and play and have fun, because isn't that what we are as creatives, what we want to be?
Right.
So yeah, have a play, I think.
Well, there's a big takeaway from this episode. If you have not created anything on TikTok or created at least your account on TikTok, if you have not created anything on TikTok or created if you have not created anything on TikTok, if you haven't created at least
TikTok.
If you have not created anything on TikTok, if you haven't created at least your account on TikTok, go there so no one else will take your name and do some really bad stuff with it. Claim your land during the land rush while it's good, because I remember way back in the day when people were buying McDonald's.com, just to have the URL, because then McDonald's would come knocking on your door with a check for $50,000 or $1 million or several million.
I have to be the Kate Toon, unfortunately, because Kate Toon had gone. Gosh. Even though I was an early adopter, I wasn't early enough. So.
Oh, well, but the whole thing with that is I love the fact that you are the Kate Toon. And it's not just a garden variety Kate Toon. I am the Kate Toon, the one of one. And that's actually not a bad thing to be as a personal brand. So once again, I'm talking with Kate Toon of one. And that's actually not a bad thing to be as a personal brand. So once again, I'm talking with Kate Toon of Sydney, Australia. So once again, I'm...
Get rid of that breath.
That's actually not a bad thing to be as a personal brand. So once again, I'm talking with Kate...
All right, so keep some room audio tone.
Actually not a bad thing to be as a personal brand. So once again, I'm talking with Kate Toon of Sydney, Australia. Her website is katetoon.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Check her out, get on her email list, and definitely link to her on LinkedIn as well. Get to know her, follow her, because if nothing else, as well, get to know her, follow her, because if nothing else, she will be a completely out of your box view at things that you aren't you at things that you aren't thinking about and styles. And I'm going to say this, I'm sorry, this probably is not correct coming from an older white male, but what a great female role model, because I'll be honest with you, my feed is full of women doing the kind my feed is full of women doing the kind of
confetti blow.
Yes, a confetti blow, LinkedIn Barbie. Hi, all that stuff. And if you want to see what authenticity is in terms of our personal brand, using video, using is in terms of our personal brand, using video, using style and stuff like that, check out Kate Toon. That's Kate with a K, Toon with 2 O's. I don't know how
I'm more Cabbage Patch Kid than Barbie, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, exactly. And Toon is Toon. And check out her hot copy. Toon is Toon. Check out her hot copy podcast with Belinda. Her hot copy podcast with Belinda. Hot copy podcast with Belinda. Belinda. Check out her hot copy. And Toon is Toon. Check out her hot copy podcast with Belinda Weaver, because that's especially great for anyone who has to write copy. And let's face it, we all do now. Highly recommended there. Let's face it, we all do now. Highly recommended there. What other things would you like to recommend from your vast empire of Kateness?
I think just head to the Kate Toon site and find your way. I've got memberships, courses, podcasts, downloadables, and some fun groups on Facebook. Like, I do have a lot of fun on Facebook, so you can join that Kate Toon group and make up for the people who left because I changed the name.
Yeah, exactly. Well, once again, I love talking with Kate, and exactly. Well, exactly. Well, once again, I loved. Yeah, exactly. Once again, I love talking with Kate, and you're one of my friends. I'm sorry. I love talking with Kate, and love talking with Kate, and you're one of my friends. I'm sorry. You're gonna be back on, and probably in about 6 months. No, actually, I would love to invite you back on when you release your book, so we can actually talk about your book, maybe read some of the stuff in it, etc. So look for Kate coming back sometime in 2020, around the June, July timeframe, maybe. Sound good?
Yeah, and he'll be on my podcast too. So we'll see you then.
Well, fantastic. Again, Kate Toon, love you, babe. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. Love you, babe. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast and Nonfiction Brand Versity, and she is
Kate Toon.
in Nonfiction Brand Versity, and she is
Kate Toon.
And I'll talk to you guys. University, and she is
Hey, Toon.
And I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.
That was awesome. I'm going to have to rush straight off because I'm in. Hey, Toon.
And I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Is
Hey, Toon.
And I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.
All right, so my podcast is edited. I am going to walk through the process of getting this from GarageBand into an MP3 format for posting on podbean.com, which is the podcast host that I currently use. And by the way, I pay them to host my podcast because they have not offered to pay for it for me. A free subscription. But that's cool because they do a great job. And maybe one day when I'm a bigger deal, they'll make come up with a solid. But in the meantime, so everything's done. I took the end marker and see this thing? This tells the encoder, okay, just how long is this thing? Because I can't assume that you don't want some tail on the end. Well, I don't want tail, so I'm tucking it right up against that. And here is the entire podcast. Pretty simple, right? All right, so now I have to go under the file header in GarageBand and pick Save As. It'll ask me what I want to save it as. Oh, wait a minute. Come on. Hold on. No, I don't want to save as. Sorry. I want to share. So do you see over here, share export song to disk? That's what I want to do. It's kind of a weird command, if you ask me, but that's okay. I'm going to save it as an AIFF file, which is uncompressed 16-bit CD quality. I save it, the master, at the highest resolution possible because I can always downgrade it or compress it. But once you've compressed something, you can't go back and make it sound as good as it possibly can be. So I'm going to save it as an AIFF by hitting export. It's going to do its little cogitation to create a new file. And then I am going to show you a couple of special tricks that I do outside of GarageBand because, again, I've got 3 daughters, 2 of whom are in college and one that's getting ready to go in another couple years or another year and a half. Well, I don't know, whatever. But the bottom line is I don't have money to waste on stuff, so I have to do everything the free way. Using GarageBand, completely free. All it takes is my time and some electricity. The other things I need to do for the podcast, I'm going to do in another free software package called Audacity. Now, Audacity is really cool because, hold on, I want to get this out of the way. I'm going to close out of GarageBand because I'm going to be opening up Audacity. So here, let me come over here. You can see the AIFF clip right there that GarageBand created. That is my master. I'm just going to leave all the date and time information, all that stuff. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit this, right click on it, and open with Audacity.app, and that's what the Audacity logo looks like. Audacity is a free piece of software that is cross-platform, so it works on Windows machines, Mac OS machines. I even believe that they have a Linux version, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so now it's loading the file I just created. And I do a couple of things in this, which once the whirling beanball of death ends, I'll be able to do. So there we go. Here is the whole MP3. Now you'll notice you've got louder parts up here where the music is. You got quieter parts. You got all this stuff. Well, first thing I do is highlight everything by hitting Command A for Command All. And we can see, oh, it's 27 minutes and 20 seconds. Oh, that's okay. It fits in my 25 minutes to 30 minutes window. But that doesn't mean it's not a little flabby. So I'm going to go under the navigation up top. There's an effect tab, and you'll see a bunch of different effects. I'm going to go to one secret. Oh, this is my favorite secret. Truncate silence. That means literally take something that's this wide in terms of silence and make it this wide. So here I hit this. You can see the software will look for and detect silence above minus 30 decibels for a duration of at least 0.2 seconds and compress it to 60% of its full length. What does that mean? Well, let's watch. And again, I'm not touching these settings at all, other than hitting this, letting the software do its magic, and keep in mind 27 minutes, 20 seconds. It's going through, it's listening for those sections of time, and it's shortening up the ones that fit the parameters that were set in it. And now we're going to have a podcast that is, come on, baby, not 27 minutes and 20 seconds, but 26 minutes and 23 seconds. So I lost almost 60 seconds of dead air time. One of the things I have to be careful about is I will have to listen to this to make sure it didn't cut everything up and make it too choppy or too robotic sounding. But in general, it doesn't if I do it once. If I do it twice and try to get all the air out, then all of a sudden you've got like zero blank space and it just doesn't sound natural. But this will sound good. So 26 minutes, 23 seconds. And now I'm going up under the effect navigation up top and going down to compressor. Yes, I'm compressing it again, and you'll see why. This is what the track looks like and sounds like right now with the compressor. And I've never touched these settings ever since I opened the package. So these are the default settings for the compressor. If I hit OK, watch what happens. Again, it's going to read through the entire audio file, and it will take the loudest stuff and bring it down a little, and take the quieter stuff and bring it up a little bit. And keep in mind, that's why I was so careful about cutting out breaths. Okay, do you see that? See the difference? Before, after. Now, if this were a musical piece, all the dynamics would be at one level. This is an audio podcast, so people need to be able to hear it. And to be able to hear it, they need to hear it via crappy car speakers while they're mowing the lawn or doing the laundry, in noisy situations with good earphones or headphones, or bad earphones and headphones. So compressing it just makes everything the loudest stuff a little less loud, the quieter stuff a little less quiet. And here, you see this red mark here? That means at this point, something is peaking into distortion that will make it sound different. So one last thing I do is effect, normalize, and I just take everything down half a decibel. Normalize peak amplitude to negative 0.5 decibels. Because right now it's at 0 decibels, and I've got that red mark indicating distortion. Watch what happens. Again, it takes out, it normalizes everything, boom, and I lose the little red mark indicating distortion. I can now create an MP3 file, which I'm going to do by going under the File menu, going to Export as MP3. It'll ask me some questions about, okay, what do you want? Where do you want to put it? I put it in my Nonfiction Brand podcast, episode 73. And it's going to be an MP3 file, so it's not going to save over anything because everything else is a .band or a .aiff. I'm going to encode it at 192 kbps. Now, you can encode at any of these settings, and some people for their podcast will go 128 kbps or even a little lower. Kbps stands for kilobytes per second, and it has to do with quality and how much the processing the computer has to do. I like 192 kbps because I can hear the difference, especially in music. And I do have not a lot of music, but I have some intro music, outro music, and stuff like that. So I'm going to hit, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Whoa. I'm going to hit this 192 kbps. It is going to save it as a, hold on, I need to move. Why is this stuff in the way? And this is one of my favorite things about Audacity. Apple doesn't have this in the current version of GarageBand. I can add ID tags, metadata tags, or ID3 tags. And the cool thing is you can load a pre-saved template. So I've got one called nonfictionbrandpodcast.xml. I open that up and boom, it auto-populates with all this stuff. My last episode was 72, so this is 73. That's the only thing I have to update. I will save this and overwrite the previous version of the file because that will put that will lock the 73 episode in there. So again, double checking everything. 2020, I just had to update this last week. Blah, blah, blah. Everything looks good. I hit OK, and it starts chugging away to create a .mp3 file. And that's the stuff. The .mp3 file is what you will post to your podcast host. Now, I've used Liberated Syndication or Libsyn for the Rotoma podcast, which works great. They do a great job. For this one, I decided to try Podbean, and it works great. No problems there. So I'm happy with that as well. So it's created the MP3 file. And I'm going to go over here, and you'll see that it saved it. Oh, not with the full name. So I'm just going to grab the first part of the file name and plug it in there. And now I have my MP3 file that I can listen to. Hold on. Here we go.
Sorry, I just want to do something
No,
really,
that's
really
okay.
quickly.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I want to
Screenshots.
Look attractive.
Oh.
You look good.
Okay, good. Obviously, anybody who listened to last week is, I'm sure,
so-
going, God, I got to follow this Kate Toon
Gotta
chick
follow.
because she's
I've got
pretty darn
my-
cool.
my
And I'm here to say,
MP3
yes,
file to listen to and actually quality check, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be quality checking my podcast by actually listening to my podcast. There's no other way to do it. You have to listen to it if you give a crap about your audience and their listening experience. I certainly do. And so what I'm going to do is load it onto, or actually, it will load onto my iPhone, and then I'll plug in my Apple AirPods, which, of course, I purchased myself. Apple, if you want to send me new ones, I'll take them. But AirPods are great, and especially if you're like me and you like to play Call of Duty or The Division. I'm playing The Division 2 now. I'm going to go and just sit with the sound off on my Xbox One and listen to my podcast while I go around and free Washington, D.C. from the evil hordes. And I'm going to listen. And the cool thing is, by playing the game, the visuals of the game, it forces my subconscious mind to listen to the podcast. Because I found this. If I have to listen to it like I'm staring at it, I'm going to miss stuff. But the second I let my subconscious worry about it while I'm playing a game, I'm actually going to hear things that I would not hear if I were forcing myself to really, really listen to it. And that's a killer tip for you. So if you find yourself listening to stuff and not catching the stuff you want to fix, play a video game while you're listening to it. It works for me. I don't know if it will for you. At any rate, thanks for watching. I'm DP Knudten with the Nonfiction Brand Versity and Nonfiction Brand Podcast, which you have just seen being edited. This episode will air on Monday, which is Monday, January 13th, 2020. And stop by next week, because typically I try to do these podcast editing sessions on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Central Time, USA. That's UTC -6 during Daylight Savings Time, which it is right now. And I'll be doing this again. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can reach me at dp@dpknudten.com, spelled like you see it right down on screen. Hold on. Yeah, down at the lower left corner, Knudten, Knudten. And dp@dpknudten.com. Ask me any questions. I'd love to hear from you. And if not, I will see you next time. That's it for the GarageBand Podcast Editing in Real Life 101. I'm DP Knudten, and goodbye.